of everything that I've ever helped a company with, email is by far the number one time suck in business. Every company's got processes and payroll and onboarding and unique processes, and all of that's important to solve. But email, you solve that one, it's like the quickest win that you could have. It might take you 15 minutes to do something that saves you 5 minutes a day, but 5 minutes a day is 25 minutes a week, like 2 hours a month. It's a good return. But if you just look at it, oh, it's only going to save me 5 minutes, you're not giving it like the right context to make a decision.
Welcome back, everybody, to the podcast. I have Nick Sonnenberg, who's going to be joining me as a returning guest to help me with things that usually fall into chaos within the workplace. If you are drowning in emails, you have Slack messages coming left and right, you're feeling overwhelmed, you're trying to get a million priorities done because they all need to be done yesterday, this is going to be a breath of fresh air for you because we're going to have a conversation on exactly that. He is the author of Come Up for Air, How Teams Can Leverage Systems and Tools to Stop Drowning in Work. So if the word overwhelm is representing whether you're in a career, building your business, and it seems like things are a little out of control, this is a conversation that are going to bring us back to the ground and make sure we have the tools, the strategies to get back on top of our work. He is the founder and CEO of Leverage, which is leading operational efficiency for organization. He implements his signature CPR business efficiency framework, a system to help you optimize your communication, planning, and resources. We recently got to rub shoulders. We had done an interview before, but got to meet in person at Mindvalley University out in Amsterdam. And we're like, we need to do a follow-up from our last conversation.
Yeah, I was like, I know you.
Yeah. Well, there we go. Welcome, Nick. It's a pleasure to have you back.
Well, thanks for having me back. And it was great seeing you in real life. Can't beat in real life, even though all this remote stuff is cool too.
It would have been, if we would have known we were going to cross paths, it would have been great to set up a little studio and do something in person. But alas, the virtual allows us to at least share the information.
Yeah. Those conferences, you kind of want to just maximize in-person time and stuff. And, this is perfect.
So when you go into an organization like Mindvalley, I'm very curious because Mindvalley has a lot of individuals, a lot of them are coaches, consultants, and some are actually more on the consumer level. What do you think was the most exciting thing that people got to learn about their work? Is it something that they apply within their own career when it comes to the overwhelm, or were they mostly on the entrepreneurial side?
You mean the people that I met in Amsterdam?
Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing with the community there was it's such a the diversity was insane. You have people that are, healers, and then you've got people running massive companies and like kind of everything in between. So, but the common thread with all the people there was everyone was a nice person and had interesting conversations with all of them. And all of them had it was pretty representative, honestly, of the types of clients, even though a lot of the clients I work with are a bit larger companies. In general, the reason why I got into this space and wrote a book is doesn't really matter if you're an energy healer or if you are running one of the biggest tech companies in the world. There's common foundational things that you and your team need to be doing and thinking in order to maximize productivity. And it doesn't really matter how big you are or what industry you're in. Like these are some, like, I don't know, operations laws that kind of need to be adhered to of any size. So the people I met there, they have to abide by the same laws as, any company.
Nick, what I've noticed is even if I'm just doing some little work by myself as an employee, like even in my early 20s as I was employed, I know there's some certain habits and things that slip. There's this constant, is it called entropy? This constant like deterioration of a lot of my best habits that happen on the individual level. And when I work with large organizations, I can see that systematically there's always these little habits that seems to degenerate into a little less effective that you constantly need to put energy to keep maintained. Like my inbox, I can get to inbox 0, but then it goes a little crazy.
Yeah.
Is that something you need to fundamentally change the way you approach your emails to just consistently stay on top of it?
I think you have to balance like what works for you, but you still have to work within the rules of the organization. What doesn't work is, and I care less about the specific tool like Gmail, Outlook, Slack, Microsoft Teams, Asana, Monday. I have preferences, but what I care most about is that for each of the categories I talk about in the book and that CPR framework, that the company has a standard and they've picked a tool for each of these things, and there's company norms, and then you align your team on when and how to use those tools. So I think that the individual shouldn't pick the things that are part of the collaboration tech stack. That should be picked at a top-down company level, and it should be enforced. But then, individuals within, their day and within the tools that have been picked, then you have a bit of flexibility to, you're a morning person, so you're not going to check your email in the morning. You're going to do it in the evening because you want to use the morning to work on the big projects. Like, I feel like those types of things, individuals should be owning a lot more and have a lot more authority and ownership of those. But I don't think that an individual should choose, like, they want to use Outlook, but the company's using Gmail.
Well, that would make it a little chaotic beyond the normal
A
level
lot
of
of companies, you go in there and they've got literally every tool on the market. And
no
it's
way.
because, yeah, you go in and it's like, well, Jason liked Airtable, but Nick likes Asana, but Ben likes Monday. And then Jessica, she likes Planner. And then this person doesn't like any of them. They like to text. And, works hard enough to keep track of all these preferences. And then also work's becoming more and more collaborative. So yeah, if you're in the marketing team, you probably have to work with sales. You probably got to work sometimes with HR and other departments. Um, if everyone's on their own systems, then the only common system at that point is email, which kind of reinforces this problem of, email is like the systemic issue in all companies, which is why a lot of my time is spent solving the email problem. But part of the cause is, one, people don't know how to use email. So they're missing a lot of these tips and tricks. And now with AI, like, one of the big projects I've been working on is custom email agents for businesses, because of everything that I've ever helped a company with. Email is by far the number one time suck in business. Like, if you were to add up how many hours is spent a year across all employees just in email, it's mind-boggling. So, like, every company's got processes and payroll and onboarding and unique processes, and all of that's important to solve. But email, you solve that one, it's like the quickest win that you could have. So people don't know when to use it, but how to use it, but they also don't know when to use it. Like, what's the purpose of each tool? And that's really the purpose of my book, is to kind of give you some guardrails and thinking, like, what are the problems that email should solve versus these others? The thing is, when you start allowing and you have a policy where people can just choose whatever tool they want for project management or for this or for that, well, then if everyone's on a different stack, it's harder to collaborate on tasks if there isn't one task management, work management, or there's not one internal communication tool. So then, that makes it really hard to ever get rid of a lot of the email stuff that's happening. Email is a great tool, but it's an external communication tool. It's not a project management tool. It's not even an internal communication tool. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And these other tools have specific functionality to make some of those workflows that are so, talking to your colleagues is a pretty common thing, or assigning tasks doesn't have to be complex, huge projects. Just like, hey, edit this podcast video by Friday is a task, and that should go in your work management tool. But if you don't have a common one, it ends up getting lost in email. And the best way to get to inbox zero is email zero. So shifting a lot of the things that shouldn't be in email into these tools that are more appropriate is a huge productivity lift. And that's kind of a central part of the book.
I acted all offended that people might be using more than one email client, which I think that might be the biggest transgression. But then I'm starting to look where I'm working, and it's like, oh yeah, we'll use Asana, but then Slack has canvases, and then people can have their own to-do lists. And when I start seeing that there's not a central place where you can see all tasks, and then some people prefer putting everything in a Google Doc, I can see there's no source of truth. And so I can't trust anything I see. So I always have to like double confirm everything, because I'm not confident that what I see on the tool we've decided to use is the truth. That That's something I feel is a common one.
Yeah, and it's like this invisible productivity slippage, right? And there's no stopwatch next to you to tell you, "Hey, Jason, today you lost like 3 minutes and 26 seconds because of that problem." Um, but I think you don't need it because it's so obvious that it is a problem, and it's not just a time problem, it's an energy problem. Like, spending wasting a minute or let's just use the word, if you spend a minute, but that minute is on something that you really love doing, you're not gonna have a reduction in energy. You might even have an increase of energy, right? Uh, but when you waste a minute on something you hate doing, like, your energy is gonna be lower. So even though both things were a minute, just like you can spend money, um, you can invest money or you can, like, waste money, you can invest time and you can spend time on wasteful things, right? So, investing time would be doing things that give you joy, that really are driving the bottom line, that taps into your unique ability. That's investing, and that usually is time well spent and increases your energy. You know, if I asked you to go and spend 5 minutes watching paint dry on the wall, it's not gonna be super fun, and you probably get bored and not gonna, have you probably have lower energy than you did 5 minutes ago. So it's not just a time problem, it's an energy problem.
Well, I'll tell you one of the random things that I feel has been using energy and time is every time we have meetings now, there's at least like 4 to 10 AI tools that wanna join the meeting as well, and I see one
Yeah,
individual
I'm
has
kind of
like
that guy
3
right now,
different they'll have an
unfortunately.
Otter pop in, then they'll have a Fathom pop in. Oh, and then I'll see my emails now. Fact, I basically put a filter on my email to being like, anything that's from anybody's AI tools needs to go in an archive immediately so it doesn't bother me. But it's so crazy to see how many AI tools are coming there. They're all sending you emails, and it's almost like this, hey, we're gonna have AI to simplify everything. Now it seems like there's a bunch of AI that's just dumping more stuff that I can't wrap my head around, and it feels like it hasn't solved the problem.
Well, yeah, like any tool, like all of these things can fundamentally transform your productivity and the trajectory of your company. But again, you have to know how to use these things right, you know? Um, so a lot of the things I talk about or teach, and I'm doing a thing with Mindvalley in a couple weeks, but it's it's the nuance best practices that I spend an obscene amount of time thinking about. Yeah, I have OCD, and, like, it's a blessing and a curse, and, like, sometimes I go down a rabbit hole and I just won't stop, like, I'm like a pit bull and like a tennis ball. Um, like, I spent an extra hour working on something today, and I I just couldn't stop because I'm like, "I have to finish this thing." But, it's kind of that I won't stop until I kind of get the prompt right or the custom GPT working. But that investment, back to spending and investing, now I've got these GPTs that are really good versus if you half-ass the prompt, like the results are going to be half-assed. But you invest a bit of time and you really get that dialed in prompt, now you have an asset for the rest of your, the lifetime of your business. This is a perpetual asset that's going to provide value to you.
Hmm. Is there a sort of quick audit somebody can do within their own workday to understand how much of my time is actually spent investing versus how much of my time is spent spending?
Well, I think there's a couple things. One of the things we do with businesses is we do this roadmap, and it's kind of like this overall assessment of how the team is operating and where there's opportunities, and we prioritize like a game plan. And when we do that, we facilitate. I don't do most of them, but my team will facilitate like a daily ritual exercise, and there's about a dozen buckets that we've identified where time is spent. And if I've defined, you probably have hundreds of processes in your business. The most expensive process is what I define as the daily ritual process. There's about a dozen things that you do every day, like email, right? That regardless of what your job function is, there's a certain amount of time every single day that you spend in email, right? There's a certain amount of time you spend every day in meetings or whatever it is, right? So if you kind of bucket all of these just recurring activities into this process that I call the daily ritual, um, in general, when we do this exercise, people's minds are blown because on the low end, you find maybe 6 hours, but we've seen 10 or 11 hours a day. So at the end, I'm like, well, I can see why you hired me, and the company, because how do you have time to do new innovative projects or even carry out the specific processes tied to your job when just the daily keep the lights on is already getting you to full capacity? So, at the end of the day, what I'm interested in doing is how do we increase the net capacity of an organization or a team, but not by adding more headcount, by just working smarter, right? Oftentimes, I speak with people and they're like, "Oh, well, we need to hire 10 more people." And I'm like, "What for?" And they're like, "Well, we're all drowning in work." Why I call it come up for air, but they're drowning. So they have really it's a capacity issue, and they're just not using the word necessarily. But at the end of the day, what they're saying is, Nick, we're out of capacity. We need to get more stuff done, but we're completely stretched thin and we have no capacity. The only way I know is historically I hire people, and that's how I increase capacity. When you think about it, though, it's like it's just a strategy, and there's a lot of other strategies to increase capacity. So something I encourage clients, and at my last workshop, I facilitated like a whole exercise around this, but it's really teaching people to think in terms of articulating problems versus solutions. And so I led like a whole thing, and I was teaching clients how to be better clients, not just for my sake, really for their sake, because if you're hiring a consultant, if someone contacts you to help them, but the way that they frame what they need is already solution based, they're kind of, it's like, well, what? All right, you're taking. If you've solved the problem, then like, what am I here for? Like, you're only gonna get half the value if you've already done like all the strategic work. Like if you're hiring an expert, if I'm looking to hire you, I want to share with you like why I hired you, and it's because there's a problem, right? I could maybe share, I think that this is a potential solution, but I'm hiring you because you're the expert and I want you to tell me what's best, and I would love to hear like where you think this might rank amongst all the other solutions. But most people don't do that and they have a hard time really separating problem from solution. So I know this is a bit of a ADD rant at this point, but I just think it's an important point to the listeners that if you're ever hiring a consultant, really be clear on the problem and don't, try not to interweave problem and solution.
I'll say this is some of the most beneficial people I've ever hired or brought in as an advisor or consultant is when I had no clue what the problem was, but I just knew that I had a department that was understaffed. I'll give an example because I'm inside, we're doing an audit of the entire organization. And I was like, God, I don't have a developer. I don't even have somebody that's like my head of tech. And so I had this colleague that I used to work with that was incredibly competent, both on a tech perspective and a product perspective. And I said, hey, I need you to come in here and just observe, talk to people, come on the leadership meeting, and just tell me if there's things I don't know and I don't see, because like this is not my skill. Like when I look at tech, that's the one that I'm really not really good at. And I feel like that was one of the best ways I could use somebody's expertise. And where I do have usually a bigger conflict with people, or not a conflict, but it'll be a lot more resistance, is if I bring someone as an expert, but then I'm just trying them to tell them to go execute of what I want. I feel like that's probably the issue that you face if you're coming in with somebody that's hard-headed and is just telling you like, I just want it to be done that way without a visibility that we could be looking at it the wrong way.
Well, they'll come to me and say like, I need help hiring an AI developer to do this, this, and this, right? So I guess it's problem. They will phrase it in the form of a problem, but like, are they solving the right problem? Like, if we focus on that, is it really solving the core problem? Like, in Japanese, there's this, I forget the phrase, but it's like this 5 whys. It's like there's a problem that happens. You ask, well, why did that happen? And they say, oh, because this, and this. And so, well, why did that happen? And if you ask like go down 5 layers deep, you really get to the core. And it's kind of the same. If you ask like, well, why do you want to hire an AI developer? And it's like, well, because we have all this blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, why that? Why that? You really start getting more to the root, because again, hiring an AI developer is a solution to something. Like that's not, it's kind of trivial to like solve that problem, but you really want to make sure it's the right problem. So have we done enough um, stress testing that like that's the problem we want to go all in figuring out? I think that people prematurely come up with a solution.
I feel like in the midst of a chaotic workspace, because let's say we haven't already optimized our workflows and we're feeling that sense of chaos, to actually get yourself outside of your business as usual or your rituals, as you said it, and take the time and energy to ask those 5 whys. It's almost like it's like somebody who's drowning and it's like, oh my God, I just need to swim faster. But you're so panicky that you don't realize you're supposed to swim up, right? Do you have like a good suggestion for people to kind of pattern interrupt themselves and actually take the time to ask
No,
those
like,
5
look,
whys?
I create all these frameworks and thought leadership stuff because I firsthand have struggled and done all these things, right? It's not that like I just figured this out and everything's been easy. So every single idea that I've ever discussed, it's because like I firsthand have made that mistake and just don't want other people to make it. Um, yeah, it's a challenge because when you're drowning in work, you don't have time. You get sucked into this quicksand, and it's this like quicksand trap where you're so busy, you like just need to survive, but you don't have enough time to be strategic. And if you did have time to be strategic, then you'd figure out that maybe you're going down like a wrong path and there's like a way to spend 20% of the time and get like 10x the results. But you don't have, just like it takes money to create money, it takes time to make time. So what I'm really interested in and what I do with people is how can we maximize ROT, which is return on time. So when you're drowning and you don't have time for literally anything, like what's some quick wins? Like not, you know, put AI in everything and create like 10,000 agents. It's like, how do we 80/20 this? And how do we just find some quick wins so that maybe in like a few hours, we could find, like if in 3 hours, we can find 4 hours a week, that's 200 hours a year on a 3 hour investment, that's 200 to 3 return. That's insane. It's like 70 to 1. Um, People get excited when they invest in the stock market and they make like 10, 15%. Same with real estate. Like there's opportunities right now in your life and business where you might get like 7,000 to 1 return that you're not taking advantage of. And it's really interchangeable. I would even argue time's more valuable than the money because you could go bankrupt and make it back. You're never gonna get the time back. So, um, I really, a lot of my talks, I have like a bit about this concept of return on time because I don't think people think enough in terms of that, and it's really important. So those roadmaps that we'll do, like it's really through this lens of how do we maximize ROT. And so at the end, that's how we prioritize. It might be, let's do email and we'll fix in 3 hours and then you'll get back 200 hours a year. It's another trick too that I'd encourage you to think about. Oftentimes you don't even um, spend a second of mental energy thinking about optimizing something because it's too small. But when you start thinking annually on how much time savings, that number now becomes a lot more meaningful. So like it might take you 15 minutes to do something that saves you 5 minutes a day, but 5 minutes a day is 25 minutes a week, like 2 hours a month, 24 hours a year. It takes you whatever, 10 minutes, 15 minutes to do that. And you get 24 hours in a year. It's a good return. So, but if you just look at it, oh, it's only going to save me 5 minutes. Yeah, it's not, you're not giving it like the right context to make a decision.
From what we've talked so far, this is the one that I think I'm going to be taking and applying immediately, because the moment you do that, I can see how it creates that sense of urgency. And it's almost like you're always chasing the next most urgent thing. And if you're seeing it as a 5 minute, it doesn't even seem important. And now you've just made it really important.
Yeah, I wrote an article, I think it was in Time, like saving seconds is more important than hours. And it was like about this concept because think annually, like doing that thing, how many times a year do you do that thing? So it's like in a day, you do it 10 times a day. So at the end of the year, like say 250 uh, business days, that's 2,500 cycles that you do that thing. So if you can save a minute a cycle, it's 2,500 minutes, right? That's like 40 hours that you're saving. So think in terms of like annual cycles of the thing is the right way of doing it. And then whatever your hourly rate, apply that to the number of cycles times the length of doing one cycle. If it's 5 minutes, cool. It's 5 minutes, but now times 2,400, not 5 minutes times one.
You mentioned that one of the first things people decide to do when they're feeling overworked is to add people to the team, but then adding people adds complexity in communication. And I'd be curious to know if you have any advice or a tool or a quick assessment people can do to realize, oh, this is a right time to bring on people, or hold on, we got a lot of meat on the bone still with the existing team.
Well, I would say if anything in this talk made you think, oh, maybe we're not leveraging a lot of these systems and tools properly. Like if you don't have some type of framework like my CPR and like people are not using technology to its highest and best use, even to 50%. And you you have to look outside to see what good is. Don't just a lot of people I talk to, they're like, oh well, we use AI, we're good. It's like, all right, come into my company and look at how we're doing systems and like let's benchmark it. Because a lot of people aren't even aware of what good looks like. So I think people have to be open-minded, be a student at heart and at mind, like that there's always this better way, and not and really truly try to figure out like what's the slippage. On average, we see 50% as the slippage in terms of productivity. That's like the default average. So if you think you're average, it probably means you could double the productivity of everyone in your company, or at least easily 30%. So unless you're missing a very specialized skill set on the team, um, and it's just kind of like, hey, we need another customer. We have 4 customer support. We need a 5th one. Unless it's like, hey, we're missing this like really specialized type of thing, I would try to hire as a last resort. And I would first start with the current team. Where are there opportunities? Even if it's 10% productivity increase on 10 people, that's one full-time hire right there. So how do you get that? And then like a lot of my day, honestly, is talking to AI and building custom GPTs for internal, not even for clients. But I've avoided hiring a lot of people because like rather than hiring someone, I can build a GPT that like my LinkedIn agent, it it is automatically updated on a rolling 1-month basis with the new best practices, and it's scraping my LinkedIn, it's scraping other AI influencers' LinkedIns. It reverse engineers best practices specific for unique audiences that I care about. Everything from, I mean, it's 40 pages of like nuanced detail that's constantly updated. I don't have to hire a LinkedIn person. And they're not going to do a better job than like my agent's going to do. So instead of me spending time training a new person and investing in hiring and interviewing and, then they're going to leave in a year or whatever it is, I have an asset that increases my valuation. And, I'd rather have one person that's like overseeing a bucket of these agents versus spinning my wheels hiring a bazillion people. So that's a lot of work where my focus is. Like first I try to get my team more productive, and then if there's some stuff remaining, how can I build, and maybe what I do is bring in an outside expert and get them to help me fine tune some of these things, right? So, hey, let's do this. And then anytime it gives a bad result, you get the expert to ask, why did you give the bad result? What and then the expert says, okay, well, this would have been a better result. What do we need to update in the instructions and rules that would have yielded that result? And then you're just constantly reinvesting and improving the instructions and prompts inside of these company assets.
I feel like there's an entire masterclass we can have about AI, but what I would love to do is encourage for anybody who's found in this conversation that there's massive opportunities for you to increase efficiency. I want to encourage you to come up for air, how teams can leverage systems and tools to stop drowning in work. The book itself contains things around your internal communication, external communication, working with your teams, making the plans, using systems like sprints, just everything that you would need to just really get yourself from that 50% of waste and just bringing that down maybe 5, 10, and more than likely 20+% will completely transform your sense of overwhelm and see that your investment has been put in the right place. Nick, I'd be curious to know for anybody who is, you know what, that's great that there's a book, but I would love to, go deeper, work with a lot more guidance. What are the best ways for people to start engaging with you?
So the book is a great start. I have a podcast, the Optimize Podcast, other free content. I co-host it with Jay Abraham, if you've heard of him.
Yeah, he's been on the show a few times.
Oh, Jay's great. So yeah, we co-host and we do a live consult, and it's a lot of fun. He's a dear friend and mentor and co-host. So my company's getleverage.com. That's the training and consulting company. I do speaking, so you can reach out. There's all the contact information on that site. My new project is the custom email agent. So that's getleverage.ai, and that's going to launch pretty soon. So there's a wait list there. But I think that that's going to be the big game changer. So if you're interested in using AI to automate, if you have an email problem, and it's really meant for teams. So if you and your team are receiving a ton of email and spending a ton of time, like that product is going to be where a lot of my focus next year goes.
Awesome. Nick, thank you so much for your time, for the advice. I want to make sure that for everybody that's tuning in, regardless of what size of organization or you're just getting started, there's a direction for you to take to get rid of that overwhelm and handle this chaos. Grab a copy of the book or go and look into the various links that we will put into the show notes so you can engage more with Get Leverage and Nick and make sure that you are getting the right advice to make sure that you find more of your time being given back to you, not wasted, but properly invested. Nick, it was good to reconnect. It was good to see you and good to actually have another conversation.
Yeah, let's keep in touch, and I hope this was helpful for your audience, and let me know when you're stateside.
Absolutely. And if you ever come to Southeast Asia, you got a place to stay in Bali.
Awesome.
Take care, brother.
All right. Thanks, man.
Thank you for listening to the Jason Marc Campbell Business Podcast. If you enjoyed that episode and you want to dig deeper into other topics, we have some more episodes that we've linked here. Some of them are related to sales, other on business, and even some on being more productive at work. Whatever it is you're interested in, we have so many episodes that are being listed on this channel. So please dig in, enjoy, and of course, keep selling with love.